位观众大家好，欢迎收看全民开讲，我是尚豪，是今天的主持人。台湾是我的家，台湾有美丽的风景和善良的人，我爱台湾，希望台湾更好。我从小在太极门长大，太极门也是我的家。师父教我练身体，修改自己，还教我要有良心，多做好事，帮助别人。现在世界发生很多灾祸，很多人失去生命，失去家人，失去家人，令人非常难过。不论是自然环境或是人为的灾害，这些都是人所引起的。少数人做坏事，却影响到大家。像太极门就遭受到违法官员的侵害，希望大家一起来帮忙，把这些违法的官员送去处罚，才让我们有更安全的地方，能让我们安居乐业的过生活。接下来这个影片简单清楚地介绍太极门，还有这一件冤错假案发生的原因与过程，以及为什么有很多的国内外专家学者愿意为这件冤案共同努力的原因。
Taiwan, a magnificent island, hailed by many as a beacon of democracy in a region plagued by non-democratic regimes. Visitors to Taiwan not only appreciate its natural beauties. They visit gardens, museums, and temples, and enjoy a millennia-old Chinese culture. The rich variety of religions present in Taiwan testifies religious liberty is affirmed and protected. Yet, on December 19, 2021, visitors to Taipei noticed thousands of people in the streets, protesting that for 25 years they had not been protected by democracy and their right to religious liberty had been violated. In the last few years, scholars and human rights activists throughout the world have often heard the name of these protesters. Taiji Men is a menpai, similar to a school of Qigong, martial arts, and self-cultivation. Dr. Hong Taozu, the Grand Master, Zhang Menren, of Taiji Men, has inherited the wisdom of esoteric Taoism and studied Qigong, martial arts, medicine, yin-yang philosophy, life wisdom, and heart kung fu since a very young age. After martial law was lifted in Taiwan, he started to widely accept disciples, teaching them a path to good health and happiness. There are now 15 Taiji Men academies. Dr. Hong also promoted high-profile initiatives for world peace and brought traditional Taiji Men culture abroad through over 3,000 cultural events and martial arts performances. Dr. Hong has visited more than 100 countries and has become a familiar figure in international peace gatherings and initiatives held at the United Nations. In 2014, Taiji Men was part of a coalition that launched the movement of an era of conscience. The initiative was praised by offices of the United Nations and the heads of state of several countries, with the participation of people in 200 nations, and eventually led the UN to proclaim April 5 as the International Day of Conscience. The bell's sound has also a spiritual significance in many Eastern and Western religions. Dr. Hong designed and supervised the construction of the Bell of World Peace and Love, which was first rung in Singapore in the year 2000. Taiji Men invites world political, cultural, and religious leaders to ring them, making a wish for peace. Dr. Hong devotes a large part of his time to teach Dizzy, similar to disciples, and interview each of them before they are accepted as Dizzy. There is a traditional Taiji Men ceremony after the acceptance. Dizzy show their gratitude to Dr. Hong by giving gifts in the form of the so-called red envelopes to Shifu, Grand Master, as is traditional in Chinese Qigong Menpai. Everybody understands this is part of a personal relation Dizzy have with their Shifu. Several presidents and other high authorities in Taiwan have praised Taiji Men and Dr. Hong for their contribution to the public welfare of Taiwan and for being excellent ambassadors of Chinese culture throughout the world.
Under the Zhangmenren's leadership, Taijimen has actively participated in international events, raised Taiwan's global visibility. In the future, I also hope that Taijimen under Dr. Hong's leadership will continue to work with the government that will see Taiwan.
How is it possible that, at the same time, Taijimen is praised and persecuted? When martial law ended in 1987, religious liberty was officially proclaimed. However, during a long post-authoritarian phase, the ruling party still expected religious organizations to actively support the government. Those who didn't were persecuted. The 1996 repression targeted some of the largest religious movements in Taiwan, including the Buddhist organization Fo Guangshan and Yi Guandao. Notwithstanding its caution in not taking political sides, Taijimen was also involved in the crackdown, and Dr. Hong was detained together with his wife and two Dizzy. Dr. Hong was falsely and ridiculously accused by a prosecutor who violated the law and abused his authority of raising goblins, a practice totally foreign to Taijimen. On July 13, 2007, the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court of Taiwan pronounced the final acquittal of Taijimen defendants, declaring them innocent of all charges. The Supreme Court also declared there was no tax evasion. National compensation for the wrongful detention was given to Dr. Hong and his co-defendants who had been detained. This should have been the end of the Taijimen case. However, they tried to maintain their tax bills for the years 1991 to 1996, claiming that the money Dr. Hong had received in these years in the red envelopes should not be considered as non-taxable gifts, but as tuition fees for a so-called cram school, a school where pupils receive crash courses, normally in preparation for exams. Different authorities intervened in the controversy, including the Ministry of Education, which has authority on cram schools, and courts of law. All declared that in the Taijimen case there was no cram school and no tax evasion. For the second time, the Taijimen case should have ended there, but this did not happen. In 2019, the NTB, in accordance with the ruling of the Supreme Administrative Court and the Taipei High Administrative Court, agreed that tax bills for the years 1991 and 1993 to 1996 should be corrected to zero, but maintained the tax bill for 1992, including penalties. Logically, this did not make sense, as the content of the red envelopes in 1992 was not different from the other years. In this case, the verdict of the criminal section of the Supreme Court of 2007 that found Dr. Hong and Taijimen not guilty of tax evasion. Nonetheless, the NTB refused to cancel the tax bill for 1992. On May 5 and July 23, 2020, the Taipei High Administrative Court wrote twice to the NTB for the central area, asking them to treat 1992 as the other years were treated. This also was to no avail. In August 2020, land belonging to Dr. Hong that had been seized was auctioned by the National Enforcement Agency, then confiscated after 2 auctions were not successful. This property was important for Taijimen, which planned to build a center for self-cultivation on what they consider a sacred land. Hence the protests, which also targeted what Taijimen and others perceived as the unfairness of the Taiwanese tax system in general and the immoral system of bonuses. Why did the Taijimen case last longer with respect to other groups that had been involved in the 1996 crackdown on spiritual movements, and in fact is still not solved after more than 25 years? One answer is that Taijimen refused to compromise with the NTB. By settling, they would have admitted that they had been guilty of tax evasion, something that is both against their principles and factual truth. Ultimately, the Taijimen cases and protests are not about taxes or money. They are about freedom of religion or belief. Taijimen was not raided in 1996 and persecuted ever since, because the authorities really suspected it was guilty of tax evasion. In fact, in 2021, a sensational testimony emerged proving that those who started the Taijimen case knew that the accusation of tax evasion was fabricated. In a video, the late tax collector Shi Yusheng was heard confessing that prosecutor Ho Quanzhen, the main instigator of the persecution of Taijimen, told him to lie to fabricate a false tax case against Dr. Hong and the movement.
你是说他找你去只是做做样子而已，就是 你不管做什么，反正他写他的字。
Why was the lie fabricated? The root cause was the attempt to destroy a spiritual movement that taught its disciples to think with their own heads. Authoritarian bureaucrats and corrupt officials are always afraid of those who dare think independently and follow their own conscience. This is also why thousands in the world admire and respect Dr. Hong and Taiji Men. This is why hundreds of scholars and human rights activists support the Taiji Men cause. This is why the case of Taiji Men was repeatedly denounced in international forums, including at the United Nations.
In June 2021, we brought to attention to the Human Rights Council the case of the Taiji Men. We denounced how the tax weapon was used to arm Taiji Men. In September, at the 88th Human Rights Council session, we renewed our appeal for Taiji Men. This time, we highlighted the confiscation of this Taiji Men place of worship by the Taiwanese government.
Those in Taiwan who believe this protest will simply go away with the passing of time are wrong. Protests have now lasted for more than 25 years. As the title of a book about the case suggests, the youth of more than one generation has been stolen, as they had to spend their best years asking time and again for a justice denied. But they did not give up. Generation after generation of Taiji men will continue to fight until the case is solved. More and more in the world will support them. In this sense, we are all Taiji men.
检察官和没有遵守正当法律的财税官员引起了这样的冤错假案。如果让这样的违法官员与错误的制度再继续下去，会严重伤害台湾。接下来，中华关圣文化世界弘扬协会的黄国章理事长所说的一段话，要分享给大家。
我周遭的朋友对太极门的案件，大家都搞糊涂了，3审都判无罪，这个很明显的是一个官员的道德勇气问题。再来就是制度可能真的要好好调整。最近，因为我要来这里，当然很多，包括我一些伙伴，很多人就在告诉我说，太极门又不是没有钱，那么缴了就好了，那就把它当作是一种捐助给国家，这个是好事吗？那为什么还不断的在抗争呢？我告诉他们，我说现在太极门争的不是钱的问题，太极门也不是争私人的问题，它是为整个社会在争一个公平正义，在争一个合理的制度，还有在为全民争一个合法的人民权利，一个很重要的，同时也是在为弱势者争一个平等的保障，也是在替未来后世争一个能够足为人民典范的人权康庄大道。
我希望我的未来能够有正义和公平的保护，也不要其他人遭受危害。所以我愿站出来，希望总统和所有人也都一起站出来，帮助台湾的法税制度更好。接下来这首歌曲《愿》，祝福世界和平， 大家都能平安、健康、快乐。谢谢收看。
许愿愿世界愈合，人类大地又再次平衡，回归那纯真之心，回到那清净之地，愿望让我们实现，保护自己也协助他人，不恨不慌不猜测，相信包容为彼此加油，时间会愈合一切，抹去过往的伤痕痛苦，现在未来都等着，敞开心胸为自己过活。许愿愿世界愈合，人类大地又再次平衡，回归那纯真之心，回到那清净之地，愿望让我们实现，保护自己也协助他人，不恨不慌不猜测，相信包容为彼此加油，时间会愈合一切，抹去过往的伤痕痛苦，现在未来都等着，敞开心胸为自己过活。许愿愿世界愈合，人类大地又再次平衡，回归那纯真之心，回到那清净之地，回归那纯真之心。